Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Evening Jones. It's going. You good? You good? If you are watching at theeveningjones.com and need you to log in, use your Twitter profile, your Facebook profile, whatever kind of profile you got, go ahead and use it. Once you do that, you can participate in our chat room. You can also send in your questions, type them out, put them up on the screen, talk to you. You know, or you got to wear camera headphones, talk to me like I talk to you. Been a bit of a long day. Ain't quite as sharp as ordinarily am. It happens from time to time. But anyway, we are here. We're trying to think if there is any humorous story or such event that took place in my life today. And man, I guess I'm into, no, I don't think I want to tell that story neither. Or maybe people ask this stuff in the chat room. Yeah, maybe that's, yep. I see what the question is at the top. A lot of good questions here. In fact, I feel like we can just go get straight into these questions. Here we go. What was it like to kick it with Desus and Mero at Vice? So this is an interesting thing to me because me being at Vice with Desus and Mero is kind of crossing streams in a way that I don't think a lot of people know, because I don't think people pay attention necessarily to the nuts and bolts of like the television industry. But the executive producer of Desus and Mero's show on Vice is a gentleman named Eric Rydholm. Eric Rydholm also happens to be the executive producer of a television show called Highly Questionable. He also happens to be the gentleman who created another television show that is called Pardon the Interruption. All right, you didn't see that coming, did you? You didn't see that coming. Yeah, so Eric is a very interesting guy. And I remember a long time ago, he was like, yo, I want to ask you some questions about Desus and Mero. I was thinking about this because I remember Desus at one point was like, yo, my man, Eric, created PTI. He rocks with y'all, man. Let me know if I, put y'all together. I don't even know if I actually did it or not. But Eric was on it early. And so at one point, Eric was just like, look, I don't even know what it is to do with them because I listen to the podcast, but I just feel like there's something else to be done with the show. And now you get to hear. If you notice some stylistic similarities between that and Highly Questionable, a lot of guys that work on that show worked on Highly Questionable before it. Yeah, so like when I'm over there at Vice, that's like, that's because those are the people I've been working with basically for the last 3 years in a lot of ways. So I'd been over there before. I went over there before the show came on the air. Vice is a fascinating workplace. I think that's perhaps the simplest way that I can put it. Vice itself is a fascinating workplace. And the idea of like being with Desus and Mero and that's actually work, also a fascinating idea. Like the setup they got is kind of cool because like when I was in there, at least like it's a lot of people in there. Like it's an energy to the studio that they have in there. And I think that's something that I had never really given enough credit to, even after I gotten into started doing television stuff, and even after like being in music, I never fully got it. But some studio environments just kind of engender a certain energy to them. It's kind of hard to explain in a lot of ways, but they got a lot of really interesting energy that goes along with it. So like this is like an interesting day. Like you think about this. So I'm there, and I do my interview. I get up off the couch. I go walk over. I go sit down at the desk. And then after that, I just sit in there, I want to see some of the stuff they're doing for the rest of the show. So there's this woman who had been sitting next to me. And we talked about a couple of things, but nothing really. I didn't know anything about her. I had no idea because I don't know who anybody is in the room. Like if you're not one of the dudes from HQ that I recognize, I don't really know what your job is. Like I have no idea. And so I'm just sitting there, and as she's up there, she goes to do her interview, they say her name. And I really paying attention. I'm looking at the phone or something. And then I hear something about like how much she hates racism and porn. And then the conversation continues and it becomes clear that this woman is an actress in pornographic films. Apparently she has been an actress in pornographic films for something like 3 years. And I just wasn't expecting it, right? Like I'm not really like a blushing sort or a shrinking violet. I just, if you're just sitting there minding your own business and the next thing you know, you're talking about porn. And then they were talking about the use of, I guess prosthetics would be an appropriate term, except it was like for aliens or something like that. I didn't see that coming. I just wasn't prepared. And they've got an energy there that can sustain me being up there. And then right after the pornographic actress goes, like, dudes can cover a lot of territory, man. They can cover a lot of territory. Like, I think the show is really good. Like, I mean, obviously, I mean, you could make the argument that I'm somewhat conflicted in saying that because I know the guys that work on the show, but I think the show is pretty good. Some dude named Peter is in the chat room and he says that that's your first time next to a porn star. And maybe, like, I guess I can't think of that of one off the top of my head. I do have a homeboy though who said that the barber in his dormitory when he was in college was some dude who apparently is in those films, and he goes by the name of Mandingo. His name is actually Fred. You learn interesting things in your travels, man. You learn interesting things in your travels. Anyway, appreciate the question. Let me see what else we got here. So what are we supposed to do with this Tribe Called Quest album? Just wondering, should we just be happy it actually happened? Okay. Hold on. I'm going to send this question out and get some people in here because this is a discussion I've actually been looking forward to having, which is about this new A Tribe Called Quest album. Now, I feel it's important before I start discussing A Tribe Called Quest to let you guys know that I am not really making that many blanket statements in one direction or another. I understand that a great deal of you, a significant number of you, are very, very, very defensive about Tribe. People love Tribe in a way that I have to say I don't fully understand. There's like a multicultural love for Tribe that I don't really understand, right? And that's not because the music isn't good. I just find myself very surprised that they carry the weight with people that they do, especially considering when they were really like coming up in this. You know, like this is the time where everybody seemed like had to go gangster in one way or another, and they absolutely are at a different end of this, right? Like they also are down with a certain like hipsterish clique of white dudes who I never feel like listen to that much rap, but they all really love Tribe. Like somehow they decided that was the one that they wanted to get on, which I admit it often involves like my nerves being tap danced on by like hearing people with these very strong opinions about rap, but don't actually listen to a whole lot of rap. But this is the one they know. Like there was a time where like A Tribe Called Quest was your cool answer to any of these questions. Now, that being said, here's how I feel. The first album is pretty good, but I don't love it, right? The Low End Theory is great. I don't quite love the Low End Theory in the way a lot of people do, but I think it is like an excellent, unquestionably classic album, but it ain't no Midnight Marauders. And Midnight Marauders is one of my favorite albums ever made. I love Midnight Marauders. There's never been a time that listening to Midnight Marauders was a bad idea, right? And I like Midnight Marauders more than Low End Theory, not necessarily because Midnight Marauders is better than Low End Theory, but in part because the sound has a little bit more of an edge to it, right? And I like that. It's a little, it feels a little grimier, the Midnight Marauders stuff. It does feel a little grimier, and it also feels a bit more focused, and Fife is much better on Midnight Marauders than he is on Low End Theory. And to me, that is the end of like the glory days of Tribe Called Quest. After that, you get to Beats, Rhymes, and Life and the Love Movement, neither of which are bad, but neither of which are great. I don't think the Q-Tip Dilla combination is cool, but not greater than whatever they had going on between them. Okay, then after that, we get the solo Q-Tip era, which is interesting because it has bangers for beats. And the Q-Tip put out an album that I think that we all could have really, really loved if anybody had done it other than Q-Tip. Like if I were thinking Breathe and Stop, like that's a pretty mean 1-2 single combination. That's like got a little bit of something for everybody. Like those are mean records. And then you wind up with this album that ships gold and it's Q-Tip on the cover with a fur coat open and he ain't got no shirt on, as I recall. Like Amplified was the album. And we were taking that from other people. Like it's not as though Q-Tip was doing something that was out of line with the times. We had just somewhere along the way decided that we were not doing this with Q-Tip. Sorry. It just wasn't going down. But if you throw a Vibrant Thing on right now, Vibrant Thing gets the party going. Absolutely gets the party going. Right? And there's not really a lot of compromise in Vibrant Thing either. But no, Q-Tip just wound up in a place, as a man says here, that simply was not his lane. That's all it was. It wasn't his lane. So we got 5 Tribe albums. We got 2 classics. We got a couple that ain't so, 2 or 3 that ain't so bad. So for me, I don't have the love affair with a Tribe Called Quest that other people have. So you tell me a new Tribe Called Quest album's coming out. I say to you, Tribe Called Quest hadn't put out an album I really cared about in 23 years. Like that would be my response. But the Tribe album comes out and I watch on Saturday Night Live, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about. But I watch on Saturday Night Live and I'm like, okay, these songs are kind of jamming. Let me go ahead and check out the Tribe. So I checked out the Tribe in the car. I ponied up the extra for the HK system. You know what I mean? So I got good sound, and I listened to it. And the Tribe album is banging, right? Like I'm saying this to you, not at all as a person that no matter what Tribe Called Quest put out in 2016, I would say that I loved it simply because it was a Tribe Called Quest album. I'm not that dude. Like, I don't feel that way. I don't have that emotional attachment to a Tribe Called Quest in that way. This record bangs. It bangs, it bangs, it bangs. Like, the only thing I would say about it is that it's an album with an absolute analog influence that is being done digitally, which does some things sonically where I do feel like, man, I sure wish that those drums could snap a little bit more, right? Like, I do wind up having some moments like that. But the album is true to the catalog. It's true to like the glory days of the catalog without like necessarily sounding old. And Q-Tip is better at rapping than he has ever been. And see, part of the thing with Q-Tip is if you're trying to explain to somebody why Q-Tip is dope, you're not really going to have like some real easy explanation, right? Because Q-Tip is dope. And Q-Tip got lyrics, but he ain't like mad lyrical in that way, right? Like he's not a super rapper by any stretch of the imagination. What he is though, is whenever he jumps on the track, it just feels right. Like he just has an incredible sense of feel, right? He rides beats well. Like he hits the emotional pitch where you need to go very, very well. Like he keeps it simple, but makes points. Like this, I was expecting that I was going to be the one guy to throw cold water on the idea that this Tribe album was dope. And instead, I am right there in line with everybody else. Like the way my brother put it was, he's like, I'm not saying that this is the low end theory, and I'm not saying this is Midnight Marauders, but it is an album of that caliber. And I think that is appropriate to say. I think that there's some truth to that. Right. Like, I'm not saying that this is just like it has to go into the canon of hip hop immediately. No, but it's a great record. A really, really, really great record. And by the way, they're overall better, right? Like, even if this album isn't as good as Midnight Marauders is, they are like really, really, really good and almost precise in a way that I would argue they had not been previously. Appreciate the question. Let's see what else we got here. By the way, guys, because I see all these questions here, and because I'm sure there's somebody who's curious about this, and because inexplicably, because I've been doing this podcast now for like 5 years, and somehow people still don't like really get like things you need to understand. Hey, man, I ain't messing up my bread because y'all out here being nosy, right? I ain't messing up my bread because y'all out here being messy because y'all want some drama, right? Because I understand that y'all want some drama. I fully get that y'all want some drama. So with the understanding that y'all want some drama, I have taken on a rule. By the way, a rule I will admit that my employers are very happy about, but I really think I just made this decision myself. Like, I don't remember this being an edict, but this seemed to make a great deal of sense. Hey, man, I don't really be getting out here arguing with these ESPN people in public no more. Because what happens is somebody write about it on the blogs. And you know what happens when somebody write about it on the blogs? I start getting phone calls. And you know what happens when I start getting phone calls? I find myself becoming impatient. Right. And I don't want no phone calls. And on top of not wanting no phone calls, you got to have like when you work the kind of job I have, I feel like you have to have an appreciation for the fact that there are people who have all kinds of things to do every day. And if you can save them a headache, go ahead and save them a headache. Like, these are people whose names that you'll never know. Right. But when something go down, they the one that's got to get on the phone and they got to do all the different things that's around it. And so you got to have a certain measure of respect for what those people have to deal with, because it's like this is their job, but it's not their job. So I'm not like comparing these people to janitors, but you know how like a janitor's job is to make sure the bathroom is clean, but the janitor's job is not to clean up after you. You see what I mean? So yeah, there are things that get tightened up that come up every now and then just in the course of things, but you can't just go in there and just make a mess and then be like, y'all go ahead and clean it up. Well, that's not the way I'm gonna play this game. Not to get into no argument with somebody that works at the ESPN. So I read Sage's Facebook post, and let me tell you something. I don't know what she could have put in that post to make me come on here and tell y'all something about it. Like, I got feelings, I got opinions, but this isn't how it's gonna be done. Like, you know how I feel about this stuff. Y'all don't need me to answer it. What y'all want is some drama, right? Like, you don't need me to logically break anything down for you or explain anything. She was very, very clear in how she felt. I have read plenty of critiques of what she had to say, and it seems like you guys have this one under control. You can do this without me, because I don't need my phone to be ringing. I had a pretty good week. Now is not the time for this right here. You did. I think I've done my part for the cause. If you think there's a cause I've done a part for, I think I've done my part for the cause. This is when it trickles over the line, right? This is when it becomes a thing. Nah, y'all can have that. You'd rather have me here than not, right? Right? Ain't nothing I can say about that be worth the fact that you wouldn't be hearing from me after it. That ain't about the money. That's about the platform. You got to have good sense about how you operate in this space, you know? I feel like I do a pretty good job of it. And you know why I do a pretty good job? Because if you got to think twice, don't do it. Simple as that. You can call me whatever you want for it, too. You can call me a sucker. You can call me a sellout. You say you doing it for the man. Yeah, but I'm the man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can put it any way in the world that you want to. However, I know when it makes sense. I know when it doesn't. Ain't never been one time out here ever that I've tried to pretend like I was no hero. And I think that anybody who knows me knows that. There's never been a time that I've tried to pretend like I'm a hero. I pick my spots. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But I ain't got to jump into all these fights. No, sirree, Bob. But let her go get a job somewhere else, boy. It'll be on. Anyway, appreciate the question. Let me see what else we got here. How cool is Ric Flair in person? So this is the second time that I have been around Ric Flair. I did a radio event where Ric Flair showed up. I guess like 08, 09, somewhere in there. Yeah. Ric Flair came for that. And I've said for a while that Ric Flair and Charles Barkley are the two best people I've ever seen at being famous. Right? Like there is a certain skill and art to being publicly famous. Like knowing how to deal with people and like making them feel good for having spent the time with you and coming across as being natural while also always being on. Like Ric Flair is really, 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 really good at that. He also appears to watch Highly Questionable quite a bit. He was very nice, very polite. It was real cool. And he's nature, man. Like, that's the whole thing. He is the nature boy. Yeah, I got more shoes than some of you got friends. He's the best on the mic ever. He is the illest. And look, here's the thing about Nate, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. Nature's like type O blood. Nature's the universal donor. You could bring Nate up around any crowd, regardless of what the demographics are of the people. And they about that life with Nate. Hey, absolutely about that life with Nate. Nate means something completely different. Completely different. Appreciate the question. Let me see what we got here. Past or present, game show you'd most like to be on and game show you think you'd be the best at. I don't know what game show I would most like to be on. That's a very interesting question there. Because I'm like, I would only want to be on The Price is Right if you could absolutely assure me I get to play Plinko. Like if you promise me that I get to play Plinko, forget about your showcase. I don't really need it. I just want to play Plinko. And I don't have a great explanation for why it is that Plinko makes people so happy. Because I know I'm not the only person that feels that way about Plinko. I don't know why. Like when they say it's Plinko, it gets crazy bad. I don't know what it is about Plinko. Right? All you do is take a chip and drop it down a pegboard. It doesn't matter. It's Plinko. But if you could promise me that I would get to play Plinko, I would absolutely want to be on The Price is Right. Only thing about The Price is Right is I'm a little too cool for school to be on The Price is Right. I can't do all that jumping up and down and everything else that people be doing on The Price is Right. I just don't care about it in that way. I just can't do that. I might do the hole in one or two. They still play that one? Like maybe I could do that. I think what else is what other of these games that I want to be on? Because the thing about it is, most of these games don't require like a great deal of brain power. I mean, otherwise you significantly lower the pool of likable game show contestants. All right, guys, I'm frozen. Can you still see or hear me? Because I can't tell. Yeah, hold up. All right. Y'all say you can see or hear me. I can't see or hear me, so I got to refresh. 1 second. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, so like I said about these game shows, if a game show require brain power, like it ain't that many people that you can really get a crack with. I will tell you this though. When I was in college, they did like a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire thing, except it was like Who Wants to Be a Thousandaire or something like that. Like the top prize was $1,000. And I got up there one time and something happened and I missed the early question, right? Like I missed a bunny and they got me off the stage, man. It really was just like missing a layup. But somehow I cheated and got myself another ticket and then got myself on stage. And I walked out that thing with $850. And part of why I walked out of there with $850, I mean, not really part of it. I felt bad for them. And the reason I felt bad for them is I don't think they'd actually honestly considered them questions they had were pretty hard. And so I don't think that they had even considered the possibility that somebody's going to get up like into these hundos. And I got up to the $850. I was like, yo, I ain't messing this money up. Let me get that $850. I got him, dog. I got him. I would love to play Jeopardy, but I have to be honest with you. Like, there's like, so basically, I used to be like a Jeopardy machine, right? When I was a kid, I used to go to the barbershop after school, sweep the floor, get some money, get a snack, watch some Jeopardy, right? And I was like 10, 11 years old, and people would just sit in there and watch me play Jeopardy. I mean, I'm serious. Like that's how it would go. And I find I don't watch Jeopardy like that anymore, and I don't feel like my skills are as sharp as they were back in the day. And I would love to be on Jeopardy, but I really honestly would hate to face y'all if I didn't win, because I know y'all would go hard at your boy. Hard at your boy. And I have to tell you a story about the time we had to build boats in 8th grade. So when I was in 8th grade in earth science class, we had this project where you got a piece of aluminum foil and some straws, and you had to make a boat, and whoever won got to go to like the Johnson Space Center, right? And you get your boat, and the boat that held the most weights was the one that won, right? And so I had my partner, and I remember that like in choosing lab partners that year, I got an understanding of what the teacher was doing. The teacher was taking a lot of the smart kids and making them lab partners with the not smart kids so they could be like some lessons learned in life, right? And I think I probably was better for it. But that also meant that when it came time to build this boat, it wasn't simply that I was on my own. I wasn't really on my own. It just made sense for me to be the boat builder. Right? Like, I mean, I wasn't taking no suggestions, nothing. And man, I don't know how to begin telling you how I overthought building that boat. By the time I was done, man, we had a pretty good piece of aluminum foil, man. By the time I was done, man, my boat just looked like a triangle, like just a narrow triangle. I realized I was going to try to show you a triangle, but it was going to look like something else on the video. But like, it was a triangle. Like, it was real tiny. That thing, it held like the smallest weight. It couldn't hold anything. And I looked over, and the winning boat was built by a pair. Well, one girl was pretty bright, but I can't lie to you. The other dude, who seemed to kind of be cooking up the answers, like he had like reading problems. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even making jokes. Like, he was not, he had some challenges. Do you understand how it felt being me? And I just lost the smartness contest to that dude. Like, not even no disrespect to him, but this isn't the way that it's supposed to go. Like, this isn't how it's supposed to work. And I knew it. I felt so bad as I watched that little boat, right? They just guaranteed sinkage of that little boat, right? And I say that to say, I would hate to go on Jeopardy and have a repeat of that situation in front of the world. Because y'all be coming for me, boy. Who y'all would be coming for me? Man, I felt I was like, that was a valuable lesson, though, man. That was a valuable lesson. All he did was make a box. There wasn't no technique. There wasn't no style to it. It was just a rectangle with some straws glued on the side of it. That was it. That being said, if I were on Jeopardy, I'm coming to talk shit. Like, don't let me get a lead. I'm probably going to talk some shit. Like, why you got to keep the buzzer all low? I had to buzz in the next man's face, like, snap that thing, Too bad you can't like do it like a playing card, make it stick to your forehead. Like it's right here. You know I'm gonna jump in on this, right? You know I'm gonna get this, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The problem is, you ever see the episode of Cheers where Cliff Clavin was rolling on Jeopardy? They got cocky on the final Jeopardy. That could be me. That could be me. But you know what would be really helpful when I got on Jeopardy? If they had that Black History column. Let me tell you something about that Black History column. I don't think the Black History column is necessarily that much different than any other categories. It just really stands out in the Black History column, which is if you know something about whatever the category is, the questions really aren't going to be that hard. They're just not going to be that hard, right? And the Black History question, like that $1,000 question on Double Jeopardy back in the day when the dollar amounts were lower, that $1,000 question on Double Jeopardy was like free money for any Black person who would have an inclination to go on Jeopardy. Like they give you the Matthew Henson question at $1,000. Now, many of you are like, who is Matthew Henson? And I understand that Matthew Henson might be an obscure name for many in history, but not if you ever took any like Black History class or went to any Black History Month program or anything else. Matthew Henson went to the North Pole or the South Pole. It was one of them poles, but it was cold as hell. Yeah, it was the North Pole. Yeah, he went to the North Pole, right? We know Matthew Henson, but it used to be $1,000 question on Double Jeopardy. Yes, Dennis. Matthew Henson had the flyest coat ever. Like, in retrospect, if you go pull up the picture they always give you of Matthew Henson, which I don't even recall being a photograph. I think it was just a drawing that I remember seeing him in that sick coat. How did this turn into a conversation about how dope Matthew Henson's coat was when he went to the North Pole? This is just how we get down sometimes. But yeah, Matthew Henson be like $1,000 question. George Washington Carver coming in at $600. We got those. We got those. They don't know how to tell what a hard question is. They don't know how to tell what a hard question is in Black history. Like, you want to make that a hard question in Black history? Start asking me some questions about that dude, Tim Scott from South Carolina. Because he should absolutely be honored at every Black History Month program. And I know not a damn thing about him at all. He from South Carolina. I always imagined that he had a box. That's all I know. You put a question in there about him, I don't really know if I can get it. But then I might lose control of the buzzer. White folks jump in and be like, who is Tim Scott? Yeah, so that's what I would need. Get me on Jeopardy, give me that Black History Month thing. And I ain't gonna lie, if they would let me borrow money to bet on a daily double in the Black History Month column, I'm putting everything I got on it. Problem is, could I come back home if I got it wrong? Like, how much clowning would I suffer if I got it wrong? I really love how much everybody loves Matthew Henson's coat. And it's funny because I always imagined him in that coat, but I had never thought about it as being a player coat until now that you mentioned it. That Matthew Henson coat is like, I mean, it's dope. It's fly. It's fly. Somebody asked, like, what's the Black History Month curveball question? Well, kind of curveball. Benjamin Banneker becomes a tricky case because there's so many different things that somebody could pull up about Benjamin Banneker. So, like, when I was a kid, they used to do the Black History Month quiz every February in the College of Business when my mama was the dean. And there would be a packet of questions that they would mail out, right? I mean, they send out, you studied it, and you come in for the questions, right? The thing was, like, Benjamin Banneker was the answer to like 6 or 7 questions. So it was always like, if you don't have an answer, just go with Benjamin Banneker or Lewis Latimer. Lewis Latimer was another old random, I do a little of this, a little of that Black History Month character. Like, I can't tell you at this moment right now, like, one thing that Lewis Latimer did. Like, I can do some things with Benjamin Banneker. He wrote an almanac. He wrote the plans for DC, right? And then apparently Benjamin Banneker did a whole bunch of other stuff. Lewis Latimer, I mean, I can tell you the stuff like he didn't do. I know he didn't invent the traffic light. That was Garrett E. Morgan. I know he ain't do nothing with them, whatchamacallit, them peanuts. That was George Washington Carver. Yeah. Somebody said Latimer helped Thomas Edison, and he put it in capital letters like I should have known that. But I tell you what I do know. I knew how to spell Lewis Latimer. It ain't Lattimore. He ain't Kenny Lattimore. He ain't no kin to Marcus Lattimore. It's Lewis Latimer. But yeah, give me that Black History Month question to give me a daily double in that thing. Oh, please don't give me the daily double on like Black History Month for like 400. Don't give me that. You put it on the 400, I bet a kidney on it. I tell you this though, if you did mess that up, boy, you know Alex gonna give you the ether. But that's what Alex Trebek does. He gives you the ether. All right, Lewis Latimer invented the carbon filament for light bulbs. Did he do anything else? Because I feel like there was a handful of things that Lewis Latimer did. Somebody said that $400 daily double gonna be something about Julian Bond. They probably disrespect that man's legacy by reminding people that he went to Morehouse. Oh, did Lewis Latimer also invent the toilet system for railroad cars? You know, that's not a glamorous invention, but I got to say, that was probably the bomb at the time. Like whoever invented there are a bunch of inventions I feel like we give short shrift to. I always say that the most underrated and important invention, at least in the last couple hundred years for mankind, absolutely has to be the latex condom. Think about how much you entrusting your life to the latex condom. You know, like considering what it is, they're getting better. They've still got a ways to go, but they're getting better. But like the dude who invented the air conditioner, like I don't understand why we go to work on his birthday. Right, toilet paper. Right, whoever got that right formula on that, whoever the first person was on toilet paper to be like, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this one sheet of toilet paper, and then we're going to put another sheet on top of that, and then we're going to put them together. That is a significant advancement of humanity. I mean, think about what that did just for people's moods. You know? These things are big. These things are crucial. And you get to study the packet of Black History Month questions, you're going to get the inventor of all kinds of stuff like that. Like I recall one about the dude who invented the mop. And you got to admit, it's a pretty significant invention, especially considering the fact that the Swiffer notwithstanding, we haven't really gotten very far past the mop. Like the mop was about as far as you needed to go. Like think about how long it took them before they found anything to do the job of the mop that's better than the mop. Right? Like that's the thing. You got to give credit. Like all these like fancy things that people could come up with are fantastic, right? Like somebody invented the iPhone one day. Yo, I bet that's really dope. But the mop, that's a big deal. They coming up with something on top of the iPhone every day. The mop was like, yo, that's all you need. Right there. You got a stick with some brushes on it. Clean your floors. They won't snatch the shoes off your feet no more. How do we not know that person's name? Why is the bank open on that person's birthday? Right? That's what black can do for you. Invent the mop and the carbon filament for the light bulb. Yeah, the toothbrush is pretty crucial. I would agree with you there. The toothbrush is pretty crucial. I also imagine the mop was invented by somebody who was not getting on his knees to scrub another floor in his goddamn life. I said, think about 1600s breath. That's real. Toothpaste took come a long way in a relatively short period of time, too. Like, breath was a whole other game back in the day. Like, how bad did your breath have to be back in the day to be bad breath? What year did they invent mouthwash? I'm Googling that right now. When was mouthwash invented? Oh, wow. By the way, they came up pretty quick. Hey, there's an article from 2012 here that is entitled A Brief History of Mouthwash. I feel as though it's necessary for me to continue this. Apparently in 1 AD, the Romans used to buy bottled Portuguese urine to purge bacteria from the mouth. So that's where we were. Yeah. In AD 23, they used tortoise blood. Later, a Greek surgeon suggested using juice and leaves of olives with milk, gum myrrh, pomegranate, vinegar, and wine, and that might fight bad breath. Fight it. In the 12th century, somebody got the bright idea, just use cold water. Which I have to say seems like an improvement over that olives and pomegranate shit. In the 16th century, it says that they use a mint and vinegar solution, which I have to say is heading in the right direction. Then in the 19th century, that's when mouthwash was invented. So what we're really talking about here is, especially like somebody says about 1600s breath, it seems that 1500s breath was the bottom because they hadn't even figured out to use mint by then. How have we never considered how bad old school breath must have been before now? Like, I feel like that was a fantastic exploratory mission that we are all better people for. Or maybe it's just me. Appreciate the questions. Let's see what we got here. There we go. Yeah, so like I got to the open a little bit late, and I was like, so is this supposed to be funny? Because I was like, did I miss out on something that was funny? And it just wasn't funny. And I kind of showed up for the funny. Right? Like if you go dress her up in the Hillary Clinton suit, you got to do some jokes with it. But I find that there are people who found themselves like brought to tears by it. And I'm somewhat curious as to why, because I can see some arguments behind it and where people would be coming from on that. But I mean, it didn't hit me like that. And I don't have the answers for why it hit them in that way. But I was like, I don't think this is the way to start the show, especially, by the way, a show that Dave Chappelle was hosting. So like I have an understanding that, you know, the guy that's hosting is normally not going to be in that opening sketch. But at the same time, that's not the warm up for Dave Chappelle. It's really not. Like Dave happened to be great, but they didn't do anything to make his life easy with that one. But anyway, I thought the episode itself was pretty good. The sketch with Dave and over there with Chris Rock, that was pretty funny. Like, I do think the way that people have reacted to this election has had a great deal to do. There's a relationship between your reaction to the election and what you thought the electorate was capable of. And I think that the result was something that a lot of people did not think that the electorate was capable of. And then that gets you to the questions of why you thought the electorate was incapable of it. I didn't think the demographics were possible for Trump to win, right? Like the way it happened wasn't so shocking. I just didn't think it was mathematically possible. I thought the lesson from the 8 years of Obama was that the demographics are such that you can win an election without having this, even if you lose the white vote overwhelmingly, you can still win the election. I told you, Fox had that thing. They're like, look, this is the return of the white vote. And that is exactly what happened, right? That is exactly what went down. I just didn't think the math could shake it out to make it work the way that it did. But then it did. I mean, some people are like really coming to grips with things that other people have been considering for a very long time. So the people who just came to grips with those things, I'm imagining they see that woman playing the piano and start crying. And I'm like, yo, man, will you hurry up and get these jokes off? This week has really sucked. Appreciate the question. Let me see what we got here. Hold on. I'm going to try to give you out at least one more question. What's with all these people who want to give Trump a chance? I think this is an interesting question that I think people need to consider a little more before they just kind of rush to what they're saying. Because I think you need to stop and ask people, give them a chance to do what, right? Because I'm not in the position I think I can interfere with his chance to do anything. So it's like, what is it that people think that we should give Trump a chance to do? You can't get farther than that, because I do agree that, look, if you have a certain measure of respect for the republic, then you have to recognize that an outcome like this is possible, and the outcome is what you got to rock with, because the rules say that this is who becomes the president, right? So the transfer of power has to be orderly. Everybody has to try to make this look as good as they can, because the integrity of the republic mandates it. But I don't know what I'm supposed to be giving anybody a chance to do here. Like, if you start doing something and it looks ridiculous, you call it ridiculous, and that's that. But I'm not in the position to stop him from doing anything. I don't think, nor are the majority of the people who are listening or watching it. They're not in a position to do that. So what are you talking about? Like, what do you want people to give? How is this chance given? Because I feel like the votes are where the chance was given. Like, that's already done. Like, to give him a chance, he's got a chance. It's already there. It's already there. And interestingly enough, he will not deal with nearly as much obstruction as his predecessor, who does appear to be just a little less crazy. Just a little less crazy. Appreciate the question. Let's see what else we got. I think we're out of things that I find interesting here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on the Evening Jones. We do this as best we can. Probably not next week because there is a holiday. But hey, man, Lance Gilliam handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Remember, if you can't watch live, check out the podcast. Subscribe to the iTunes Store. Subscribe to Stitcher Radio. We are in the Google Play Store. Also, check us out on SoundCloud. If I don't talk to you before Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. Talk to you soon. Take it easy.